Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago. And it's 7 p.m. in New York City. Everybody, once again, I'm back with you. And she's joining me again. God help me. We are back with What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast. I am the Mad Dog. She is the Pitbull. Mm-hmm. And Big Lou Marconi has made his way into the house.
Yes.
Big Lou's in the house. Yeah. Hey, Lou.
Hi.
That calls for something special, Amelia. Hold on. That calls for something special.
Yes.
Okay, it's enough of that.
I didn't know I was going to get that. All right.
Right? Either did I, Lou. Either did I. We had an amazing show last night. We got last night garnered us 348 downloads.
Fantastic.
In our 1 hour show last night. Remarkable show.
Thank you.
Yeah, good show. And thank you. I love my audience, but I'll tell you what. I was telling Amelia when we were off the air there for a minute. We were at the 125,700 and change on our downloads.
Oh, wow.
So we're working, we're slowly approaching 126,000 downloads.
Nice.
In our on our stream. People like to do that. I've noticed that. You ever, Lou, that when you do a show, do you ever notice that you have like a download count?
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah, it's strange.
It really is. Kenneth is here. Kenneth Jarrett Singleton. I like this guy. He's a smart thing. He's a critical thinker. Mm-hmm. I like that. Tonight, very special show. There will be a couple of graphic warning messages tonight. We are doing the criminal legacy of Charles Manson. And anytime you got Manson anywhere near subject matter, you better hide the children, put up all the warnings, make sure the elderly have their blood pressure medicine, because it's always an interesting conversation, especially when we play our video clips of the now immortal Charles Manson. God help us all. Let me tell everybody a little bit about Charlie Manson. Charlie Manson was born Charles Wilson Milles Maddox on November 12, 1934, to Kathleen Maddox, a 16-year-old alcoholic prostitute. Now, think about what I just said. 1934, a 16-year-old alcoholic prostitute. She must have been a real special kind of girl. In 1945, she married William Manson, a low-level petty thief. In short order, the marriage ended, and little Charlie, who was 12 at this time, was placed in reform school custody, rejected in his attempts to return with his mother. Charlie was soon living on the streets and getting through by petty crime, and that's how his career and crime started. Fast forward to August 9th, 1969, Manson gathered a group of followers to carry out his massacre among Hollywood's elite and beautiful people. The first of Manson's victims was murdered at the home of director Roman Polanski, located at 10050 Celio Drive in Benedict Canyon, California. I know exactly where that's at. an area just north of Beverly Hills. Polanski was away in London doing a film at the time, but his victims, all four of them, his house guests, all four of them ended up being Charlie Manson victims. Although Manson himself did not actually partake in any crime, nor did he actually do any killing. He directed four of his most obedient followers, Charlie Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, to the addresses of the aforementioned individuals, and they went to town. The rest is history. We'll get into that later on. Big Lou Marconi. Let's talk about, let's smarten everybody up a little bit here, as they say. Let's talk a little bit about Charlie Manson. Your first introduction to Charlie, where, when, and how?
Believe it or not, when I was at a young age, my father was watching the film that was on television at the time, and I watched it with him, called Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
And he was my dad was explaining it to me. I want to say I was maybe 9 or 10. And it was on television. It was actually edited for television at the time, because originally it was a book. The prosecuting attorneys wrote the book.
Yeah.
Then they made it into a movie. And the actor that played Charles Manson did a great job.
His name was Steve Railsback, and he's still with us.
He's still with us. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember when that movie came out. But and then I didn't even know until later on, once I was a teenager, that Helter Skelter was actually a Beatles song.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Actually, that's going to be very prominent in the psyche of Charles Manson. The music business in general is either, depending on how you look at it, Lou and Amelia, is either the catalyst by which he based his crimes or the reason he did what he did, depending on how you want to play with it. We're going to actually see and hear from Manson himself. You will see a lucid Charles Manson. You will see an out there, all too often out there, Charlie Manson. And we will talk a little bit about this guy who has had such a profound impact on not only pop culture, but celebrity culture. I was astounded. And that's not an understatement when I tell you, I was astounded to find the number of people in Hollywood who even to this day think that Manson was like a cool dude, like he was an okay guy. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
You mean like a cult-like figure?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Oh my God, yeah.
They're uninformed.
Right.
They're absolutely uninformed.
Very ill-informed, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
When did he die? When did Charles Manson pass away?
Charlie died in 2019.
2017.
November 19th, 2019. Here's the funny part, Lou. He was born November 12th, 1934.
Yeah.
He died November 19th, 2019, 1 week after his 83rd birthday.
Whew.
1 week, exactly 7 days.
He was in prison in Bakersfield.
Yeah, he sure was. Here's the other thing about that, Lou, and I'm glad you said that. A lot of people thought all these years that Charlie Manson was in San Quentin. He never spent a day in San Quentin. Not a day. He was always in either San Jacinto or Bakersfield, California.
Wow.
That's what we know. The idea was because so many people, even then, the groupies, you know, there are a strange group of women called killer groupies.
Right.
And John Wayne Gacy had them. Ted Bundy had them for sure. And Manson had more than all of them. And they had to willfully misdirect people to thinking he was at San Quentin because the sheer number of the volume of people showing up where he was was disturbing to not only the neighborhood, but to the running the prison. So telling everybody he was in San Quentin kind of gave the actual prison a bit of a reprieve. You can't make this shit up, brother. This is directly from the wire, man.
The Night Stalker, that Richard Ramirez guy, had a bunch of women as well. He was in LA. Yeah. He was in the 80s.
My God.
That's a unique story.
We did a show on Ramirez. We're actually going to revisit it because come to find out that Richard Ramirez may not have been guilty of all the crimes he confessed to.
Wow.
We know now forensically, at least they know 3 for sure, but possibly 4. There are 3 women dead that he said he killed that they know definitively that he did not. The idea is, why would somebody confess to a murder they didn't do? It's a rep thing. It's a credibility thing. If you're a criminal, that's your cred.
Yeah.
Your body count is your cred. Charlie Manson wanted people to believe that he killed as many as 100 people. Well,
yeah, he wanted.
Sorry, but there were only 9.
Yeah.
And not all of them were attributed to Manson, to be honest with you. Some of them were rogue by Manson followers. I want to start off the show with a little disturbing, but I have to do this. And it's really important that we do this. Those of you out there watching and listening, particularly those that are watching on video platform, either YouTube TV, Vimeo, Odyssey, any of our streaming platforms, and there are like 11 of them, Tubby TV, Roku, all those. If you're out there and you're watching us, I urge you, please remove anyone under the age of 16 from the room. They don't want to see this. Let's watch this. The following video may trigger emotional responses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay. I was just going to ask who that was. And I thought it
Mhm.
was, there was one of his followers arrested for trying to assassinate President Gerald Ford.
That was
Squeaky.
Lynette Squeaky Fromm.
Yep.
Mm.
She was paroled, actually.
She's still alive?
Yeah, she sure is.
Mhm.
She is 81 years old. The youngest of Manson's disciples that are still alive is 79.
Yes.
They were all around Charlie's age anyway. He was 83 when he passed. He was 83 years old for 1 week, and then he died.
Yeah, her name is Diane Lake, and she still vowed to re-energize the Manson
Oh, wait, I'm going
family.
to get into Diane Lake in a minute. I'm going to get
Mhm.
into Catherine
Yeah.
Scher. We're going to get into
Mhm.
we're going to get into a couple of people here. We got there's a
Yeah.
couple of names that are quite disturbing. Sandra Good
Yes.
is another one. Let me tell everybody. Because Big Lou mentioned, we're going to talk some. This is important. The musical element here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Again,
mentioned it
the
yesterday,
show
yeah.
is called "The Criminal Legacy of Charles Manson," but we may as well call it "The Musical Legacy of Charles Manson," because there wasn't really much difference between the music and the crime, at least in his mind, anyway. Let me tell everybody that Charles Manson and Helter Skelter. Manson was influenced not only by drugs, but also by artworks and music of the time, most notably the Beatles song Helter Skelter from the 68 White Album. Helter Skelter, the true story of the Manson murders, was later the title of a best-selling book and about Manson and his crimes. Paul McCartney, listen to this one.
Mhm.
This is important because Paul McCartney co-wrote Helter Skelter with John Lennon.
Mhm.
Paul McCartney said that that the playground slide in Helter Skelter was a metaphor for the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Manson, however, interpreted the song's lyrics as an invitation to begin a race war. He turned to the album and the lyrics to justify his scheme and to guide his followers to a path of murder. The Manson family, including Charles and his disciples, is thought to have carried out some 35 to 70 murders. That's the number that Manson gives. Most of their cases were never tried, never proven, and most thrown out for lack of evidence. However, there are 9 people dead today at the hands of the behest of Charles Manson. Most notably, the people I will call them the muscle in
Right.
this. Susan Atkins, for sure. She absolutely confessed, no question about it. She confessed to the murder of Sharon Tate. And Charles Tex Watson, is responsible for the death of Leo LaBianca.
Mhm.
I believe that. Lino LaBianca. I'm sorry, Lino LaBianca. Also, it is also noted that Abigail Folger, who was the heir apparent to the Folger Coffee Empire, was killed by Susan Atkins as well. So she's got, 2 Hollywood hits under her belt. Let's talk about this, Amelia. I'm going to bring up here,
Yeah,
too.
of course.
All right. So when, where, and how did you hear about all this? And when was your first introduction to Helter Skelter?
Well, of course, I was letting you earlier. It was like more in high school when we did a little bit of history. But my dad I asked him a little bit about that because my dad was more into that, and he was like, "Well, you need to know this." And my mom's like, "Well, no, don't be scaring them." I said, "Mom, I need to know this because it's a part of our history." And the Helter Skelter, of course, because my mom loved the Beatles, and so did my dad growing up as well. And I said, how could somebody be so cruel and like that and so just empty-hearted? And my dad said it was probably a movement that he had back then, and with all the drugs that they were given. And I
Mhm.
said, well, Dad, it sounds to me that a government had something to do with that. I mean, he wasn't just.
Well, we're going to talk about that's a rabbit hole issue. There is some. In fact, one of the people who is touting that right now, in fact, even as we speak, is Joe Rogan. He really believes. Lou, are you familiar with this? that Joe Rogan believes that Charlie Manson was a government psyop operator?
I did not know that. No, I'm not familiar with that. I've
Yeah.
barely heard any conspiracy. The only thing I heard about the Manson, well, actually the Tate and LaBianca murder specifically, was that there was things found in Sharon Tate's residence.
Yes.
But see, they didn't have VHS tapes or video cameras back then. This was like 9mm films of things that Sharon Tate did for Roman that was really off-putting. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but
I know
that Polanski was pretty much a deviant, which explains why he's not living in the United States. Yeah,
he sure was. He was tried in absentia and convicted. He's absolutely right. Lou said he spoke the truth. Roman Polanski has never been allowed, has never returned, and if he ever does return, will be arrested the moment he sets foot on U.S. soil. Those charges don't go away. Statutory charges don't go away.
No, they don't.
Particularly the statutory rape of a 12-year-old girl.
Yes.
She was only 12?
She was 12. She's still alive, too, by the way. She's still alive. And I think she's 66 now. And she's a year older than I am. Yeah, that's absolutely for shoot. The other thing that people don't understand about this, with regard to Charlie, all he ever really wanted to do in life was play music.
And have his music heard by someone. At least it was
the problem, though, is you have to have a little bit of talent to be able to play music.
Just that, just a little bit of talent, yeah.
Well, the music that he wrote, I will say this, he was a better writer than singer and performer. He played guitar moderately okay. He learned how to play in prison, so whatever you want to glean from that.
Yeah,
but
he was learning.
Though, hold on a minute. With regard to the idea or the notion that that he is a government psyop and there is some credibility to that.
Okay.
There is some credibility to that based on not only the historical evidence we now have access to through Freedom of Information Act, but also eyewitness testimony. You're going to hear Joe Rogan here in just a bit, in about 2 minutes, in fact. And some other people. You're going to hear from Charlie himself, as a matter of fact. And you're going to see a couple of different sides of Charlie that most people have never seen. People know the crazy Charlie, the outlandish, the bug-eyed guy. You're going to hear Charlie Manson talk about himself. Very lucid, very matter of fact, and almost in go ahead, Lou.
Was this the Geraldo Rivera interview that was done back in '88, I think?
No, it actually, believe it or not, was his confession to the parole board.
Wow.
He was up for parole a lot, and they said no way. They wouldn't let him out.
He was given 20 consecutive life sentences.
Yeah.
20 to be served consecutively. Now, okay, you're going to be dead after the first one.
Yeah.
You're going to serve the rest of the other 19 in hell.
Okay. Absolutely.
But while we're talking about, why don't we do this? Because this is really good. Why don't we pull this up right now?
Yeah, let's take a look.
And then we'll talk about it after.
Yeah, sure.
Thing with Manson was a CIA psyop. He was a part of all that MK Ultra LSD studies. They were letting him out of jail. He was getting arrested, and then they would go to the people that arrested him and go, no. Let him go. And these sheriffs were like, it's above my pay grade. And they had to let him go. He was connected to a bunch of different robberies, and he was on parole. Jolly West visited him in jail. It's documented he visited him in jail. And he was a part of their program. They would take people, especially people that were charismatic, and teach them how to use psychedelics to influence people.
You've got it stuck in your brain that I murdered somebody.
Do you see what they were inferring, Lou?
Yeah.
They were inferring that the government, through the MK Ultra program, used this guy, Charlie Manson, as a Manchurian candidate to carry out certain biddings. You get where they're going with it, right?
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now, let's talk about practicality. In fact, why don't we do this? Let's bring this down for a second. Let's talk about practicality. How practical is it?
Well, the government's never practical.
Well, that's a given, Lou.
That's a given. You knew I was going to make a joke eventually.
Yeah,
I can't help it. My head would explode if I don't otherwise.
I know. If you know what, especially with Manson, because if you don't have a sense of levity, you'll drive yourself batty.
It's what keeps me sane. That and my wife keeps me sane.
Yeah, amen to that, brother.
Well, she's my cardio. So, but
there you go.
All right,
so
my wife is my cardio.
The idea of Charlie being the subject of possible psyop operations.
Yeah.
Using him for I mean, we got to talk about it because it's out there.
It's out there because Rogan said it, and he has so many followers and people that tune into him. Yeah. I heard all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories. I'm like, why him? Why some guy that's like a, what was the practical? What did it accomplish? What were they trying to do?
I'll tell you. That's a great question, Lou. That's a great question. I'm going to answer. What they accomplished was that they could take even the lowest of the low, this little 5'2", 5'3" little squirt that's basically, a railroad hobo bum, essentially, and turn him into a cult leader, which they did.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're talking about a guy with really no skill, no personality, And so what are we talking about? We're talking about a guy that was a nobody that in his mind became a somebody.
Didn't he have my dad mentioned this while watching? He goes, yeah, this guy, he thought he was he had a messianic complex because he thought he was Christ.
Yeah, he thought it was Jesus. He sure did.
Yeah. There you go. He had a messianic complex. So
yeah, well, he told his followers, that he was Jesus.
And that's where he met most of his ladies too, was there with the research study and with LSD, methamphetamines, and everything in that research company. David Smith was the founder and became a subject researcher of this place. And Roger Smith also was the researcher there.
Here's the deal about that, Mill. And I'm glad you're going right there too. The Manson family eventually moved from San Francisco to a deserted ranch in the San Fernando Valley. Now, that ranch was not really abandoned, as they say.
Wasn't it a set on a
movie set? Yeah,
it was a movie set, but the owner of the property, Richard Spawn, it was called Spawn's Ranch.
Yes, I remember.
Lived on the property. He lived there by himself, but he was a guy by himself, older fella. He needed a couple of bucks. They actually paid him, and they did what they said they were going to do. They did not live there for free. They paid him. They actually took care of him, believe it or not. Yeah. If you can believe this, because one of Charlie Manson's followers was a nurse in training, believe it or not. You can't make this shit up, folks.
Yeah, she was a nurse in training, and of course, others panhandled and everything like that.
Manson's followers also included a small but hardcore unit of impressionable young women.
Yeah.
They began to believe without question, Lou. They began to believe Manson's claims that he was Jesus Christ and his prophecy of a race war were going to be fulfilled. And then that ties right into the whole helter-skelter thing. But let's talk about when we're talking about Charlie, let's talk about this entirety after this about 3.5 minute clip. I want us to watch this. It's really, really critical. Watch.
Sure. What do you want to call me a murderer for? I've never killed anyone. I don't need to kill anyone. I think it. I have it here. Burglarized a grocery store, stole some nickels and dimes, busted open a stamp machine, stole a few.
Pay attention to this, please, because this is Charlie Manson at probably the most honest you'll ever hear Charlie Manson. And I mean, like, straight up, this is who he is.
I have it here. Burglarized a grocery store, stole some nickels and dimes, busted open a stamp machine, stole a few automobiles, and cashed a couple checks. I'm a petty car thief. I've been with prostitutes and bums and winos and all my life. This street is my world. I don't pretend to go uptown and be anything fancy. I can, but I find more real in the world that I'm in than I do the tinsel. And the real world is the one I have to deal with every day, you know. Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
I want you to consider what he just said. If I wanted to murder people, there would be none of you left.
Y'all left.
The look on his face when he said that is,
Yeah.
it will make your blood run cold. Let's continue.
One of his most famous interviews, conducted in 1989, Manson talks about an array of topics, but the most famous section of the interview comes when he is asked who he is. His response is both eerie and disturbing.
People look at you today, 20 years later, and they still have no idea what you're about. Tell me in a sentence who you are.
Nobody. I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight racer if you get too close to me.
Met Charles Manson in prison, didn't you? What was that story? Can you tell us that?
In the county jail. But let me tell you, Charlie wasn't the guy that you saw on the TV special. And he was like 5'5", little scrawny. He was poor, kind of like a bum, really. We found out that he could hypnotize you, so we let him sleep in front of our cell to make sure that nobody...
Listen to Danny Trejo. By the way, Danny Trejo is one of the most incredible character actors that's working today. Danny Trejo was a hardened. He was a bad motherfucker. Okay, he was a bad motherfucker.
He did time.
He did serious time, brother. Serious time. He was no joke. Let's watch.
It hurt him. Everybody else had like 6 guys in their cell. We only had 3 because we were special. I had 2 killers with me. So, and then he got us loaded on. I said, well, get us loaded on him. He got 2 of us loaded on him. One guy just woke up, and afterwards I asked him, how come we couldn't do him? And he says, did you ever get loaded on him? I go, no. Your mind doesn't know how to react. If I tell you to do something while you're hypnotized and you haven't done it before, you'll just wake up.
So you're saying that he got you guys loaded up on, but there was no in the room, right? He was doing this purely through.
Are you guys getting what he's saying here?
Yeah. He
He's
had mind
telling
control
people
power.
that Charlie got them stoned and high just by thinking it. I want you to grasp what we're talking about here, because it kind of echoes back to what he said about 2 videos back. I don't have to kill anybody. I think it.
Just think it, yeah.
There seems to be, with every watching of this video, and I put this video together, all the videos you've seen tonight, I put these all together, and I did so in order for a reason. Every time you watch another video of Charles Manson, it becomes clearer and clearer that he was either working with or for someone. But the question remains to me, Lou and Amelia. The question remains, to what end and for what purpose? And why the Hollywood elite? What is it about the Hollywood establishment that somebody has a heart on for?
You
So
mean
let's talk about
for
that.
this
We'll go
guy?
back
You
to
mean
the
for
video.
Charles Manson himself? Why do they have an erection for him?
Yeah.
People are stupid. I mean, to be honest.
Yeah,
What's the word? Bendejo? I mean, it's just
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
It's
that's a good word
just-
for it in Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
I'm like,
call it down the middle. You're not.
Yeah.
well,
exactly.
no, I mean, because he's the thing is that I've seen many videos with Danny Trejo, and he's talking about what it's like to do time.
Yeah.
And one of the things he'll tell you, especially if you're new to the prison system, is these guys are waiting, and they have nothing but time to manipulate you to do what they want you to do.
Absolutely.
Charles Manson was a master manipulator. Look what he made those people do.
Oh yes. Absolutely.
And in prison, they will do that. They will bring you in. It's almost like a grooming process because they'll make you your friend. You think you have a friend. Oh, cool. I got a friend here. I'm all right. Not
the
really.
idea, Lou, and I want to, Lou, I want to piggyback on something you said here just a second ago, and it's a very, very important point that you bring up. The idea of Charlie being a master manipulator, which you're absolutely 1,000% correct, he was. But my thing, and as you're talking, it hit me. It hit me like I had that aha light bulb moment, right?
I'm glad I helped.
Because here's what I thought. You know what? Charlie didn't need MK Ultra. He started when he was 12 as a criminal. He's been manipulating people his whole life.
And he learned how in the system. He became a criminal. That's
that's
how he survived.
Literally 75. Listen to what I'm saying. He was 83 when he died. He spent 75% of that 83 years in jail, incarcerated, in prison, in reform schools, in some kind of encasement. He's only been a free man a pubic hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very small time.
In terms of time. In terms of time. Yeah.
He had to do what he had to do to survive. Yes.
But when Amelia, you don't even know what you opened up, kid. Watch this.
Hypnosis. You've basically got unlimited access to anything that you want because he can just keep on hypnotizing you back in.
You know, if I wanted to kill somebody, I'd take this book and beat you to death with it, and I wouldn't feel a thing. It'd be just like walking to the drugstore.
Do you feel blame? Are you mad? Do you feel like Wolf's Bob Francis?
A Beach Boys song written by Charles Manson? It's one of the craziest connections in music history. Let's go behind the song. In the summer of '68, two hitchhikers from the Manson family caught a ride with Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson. This led to a meeting and an unlikely friendship between the famous musician and infamous cult leader Charles Manson. With Manson desperately trying to break into the LA music scene, the two attempted various collaborations before Wilson ultimately offered to buy and record one of Manson's original songs, Cease to Exist. Manson agreed to sell on the condition that the song not be altered, but Wilson and his bandmates ignored his request and gave Manson's blues number a West Coast pop sound. Manson, so enraged by the changes, delivered a bullet to Wilson as a symbolic threat, and Wilson, according to witnesses, beat the crap out of him. Many people, including Wilson, credit this moment, along with other rejections in the music industry, as precipitating factors to Manson's ultimate attack on other Hollywood royalty.
And therein lies his entire MO. He wanted to be here. They said it when he was a kid. Listen to this one. When he was 14, probation officer said this, Lou. Manson was described by probation reports as, quote, suffering from a marked degree of rejection, instability, and psychic trauma, and constantly striving for status and securing some kind of, quote unquote, love. Other descriptions included unpredictable, safe only under supervision, a wild card, unquote. His various offenses, including pimping, passing stolen checks, and in 1971 was sent to McNeil Island prison in Washington State for 10 years. It was while he was incarcerated that Manson learned how to write music and play the guitar. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because inevitably it ended up getting 9 people killed. Here's what we know. I want to throw some honorable mentions in here. Do you guys know who Gary Hinman is?
The
Ever
first
heard
victim.
that name before?
I know he was the first victim.
Yeah.
He was the first victim.
Yeah.
He has a special connection to Charlie Manson. He was a music teacher. He was a music teacher and songwriter. His name was Gary Hinman. For some reason, I don't know if it was he killed him out of jealousy, or he didn't actually kill him. He had him killed. Again, proven. Charles Manson never laid his hands on anyone. No one. His hands were clean. Parenthetically, anyway. But he found Gary Hinman offensive. And I think the reason is because Gary Hinman was young, successful. He was a songwriter. His music was being sold. He was teaching music to other people, teaching young people how to play the guitar and other instruments, because he was multi-talented. He played like 7 or 8 different instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So he could do a lot of stuff. The other honorable mention, very important in this, because it may be one of those aha moments again. Terry Melcher. You know the name Terry Melcher. Amelia,
Yeah.
who's Terry Melcher?
He was the first person to tell Manson to fuck off to his face.
He was absolutely the very first one to his face to tell Charlie Manson to fuck off.
Yeah.
But he's also the guy.
He introduced him to the LA Music Society. Yeah.
Here's the thing, Lou. It's an interesting guy, Terry Melcher. Not only was he, as Amelia said, the first guy to tell Charlie to go fuck off.
That was funny.
That's the start.
He's also the guy that got Charlie into all of these parties with executives of Capitol Records and RCA Records and all these other big labels at the time, like Parlophone and the other one, a jazz label. I forget what the name was. Anyway, but he introduced Manson to society.
Yeah.
And for a time, they accepted him. Until at some point, here's what Terry Melcher had to tell Charlie. He said, I'm sorry, but I just can't do anything for you. There's nothing. It's be out of my hands. I can't do anything. I won't go. I won't push the subject for you. And that got Charlie so distracted, so desperate to become a member of the music community. He knew it was never going to happen for him at this point. That shortly thereafter, Terry Melcher had to sever his relationship with Charlie Manson and move on. The other interesting thing is Terry Melcher's mother is movie star Doris Day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's important in this case. Amelia.
Yes.
What do you know about the women that are still in prison? Are there any women still in prison?
Well, I believe Diane Lake. Well, no, she was released for good behavior. I knew that, and some of them were still released. A couple of them were still paroled. And some of them were deceased, of course. So I don't.
Diane Lake's an interesting character. Lou, do you know who Diane Lake is in the Manson family?
She was. You just said earlier she was the youngest, as far as I know.
She was 14 years old.
Yeah.
14. Yeah. Wait a minute. Here, did you know how she came to be part of this?
I didn't get that far.
You're going to shit your pants when I tell you. This is crazy stuff. Her mother wrote a note.
Ready.
I love Lou Marconi's fucking loon. He's a loon. We love loons over here. I'm going to call him Loon Marconi next
Loon Marconi. I don't give a shit.
But here's the thing about that. Her mother wrote a note
What?
Her mother wrote Charlie a note.
And what did this note say?
She emancipated her daughter to Charlie Manson.
Say, would you please take my daughter?
Basically, yeah, she's yours now.
What?
I heard teenage girls can be difficult. It's like, here, just take her.
Evidently, yeah.
You have two.
The whole
I
thing
have two.
here,
They're not teenagers yet, but I'm looking
but
for
the whole thing about Diane Lake is that she was, like I said, she was 14, and her mother emancipated her to his care.
And
think about
Charlie.
about that.
Charlie had to be in his mid-30s at this time.
No, at this time he's the 26, 27.
Okay,
somewhere around.
That's bad. That's still bad enough. Yeah.
So, yeah, I get close enough for government work.
I know it was the 60s and 70s, but I mean, does she like not lose her mind? Was she on this LSD stuff herself? This woman?
The mother? Maybe.
Yeah.
She absolutely was an alcoholic, and she was a prostitute. Very interesting, because Manson's mother was an alcoholic and a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, like you said, he was a master manipulator. You have no idea how he did that.
Oh my God! Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Lou.
Especially when you're 14 and that impressionable at a young age.
We saw moments ago a rather graphic video. You saw the after pictures first and the before pictures second. I did that purposely. I wanted you to see the state that they left these people in.
Oh,
the youngest was a 17-year-old boy. Okay, a boy named Stephen. What was his name? Amelia Stephen.
I don't know.
Was it Stephen Boyer? I think.
Oh yes, it was Boyer. And is that the one with the glasses, right?
Yeah, the young kid with the glasses, dark hair. Yeah, I think his name was Stephen Boyer.
The worst one was when they left her with a smile on her face. You said it with the lipstick.
What they did was
that was horrible.
They painted a smile on her face with lipstick and just awful. There are a number of Manson. We have to talk about the family of Charles Manson because we saw them. Many of them are deceased. Many of them are still in jail, and some of them have been freed. Let's talk about the model citizen. Leslie Van Houten was released for exceptional good behavior.
Yes.
Lynette Squeaky Fromm, who took a shot at Gerald Ford, was released as a model prisoner, believe it or not. Can't make this up. Mary Bruner was also released by the parole board for exceptional good behavior. Clem Grogan, the first man in the Manson family to be released by the parole board, became a counselor at the prison that released him. So he left and went back.
But on the other side.
On the other side, exactly. And got paid. And got paid for it. Sandra Good. This is a strange case here. Sandra Good was such a model prisoner, such a model inmate, that they released her on the highest merit of good behavior that prison's ever awarded. The minute she got outside the gate, here's what she did. Upon her release from she proclaimed her life belongs to Charlie, and even moved out of state to be closer to him near his current incarceration. You can't make this up. She remains to this day a dedicated member of the Manson family and vows to reunite and re-energize the family. Diane Lake, released on good behavior, was the youngest at age 14. She's still devoted to Charlie and has vowed to re-energize the Manson family. There are a number who died in prison. Susan Atkins, the girl, the kid at the time. And you saw her death photo. She was the one that actually killed Sharon Tate and her unborn baby. Barbara Hoyt died in prison, testified against Manson, but she still got jail time for her part in the murders. Now, although she was a witness for the prosecution, she was a hostile witness for the prosecution because she fought all the way. But they got out of her what they needed. Vincent Bugliosi, by the way, was the prosecutor that wrote Helter Skelter.
Yep.
And I forgot the other prosecutor. Forgive me, I forgot his name.
Okay.
But I remember Vincent Bugliosi because he wrote that amazing book that became a movie, Helter Skelter. Paul Watkins, not to be confused by, he was not related to Tex Watkins, the other guy. That was Charles Tex Watkins. Paul Watkins, same name, same last name, same surname, not related at all. He was a prosecution star witness. So good did he do for the prosecution, he served no jail time, not directly involved in any of the murders or the planning thereof. Linda Kasabian died in prison, one of Manson's favorites. He was he had a real thing for Linda Kasabian. She was, if anybody was going to be Mrs. Charles Manson, it would have been Linda Kasabian. And of course, Charles Manson died in prison after having been given 20 consecutive life prison sentences. He died, of course, in 2019. So I guess he'll have to serve out the other 19 sentences in the afterlife. Well, of course, we talked about Gary Hunn and Terry Melcher. Still in jail for life, Bobby Beaujolais. He has 10 life sentences under his belt.
Wow.
Patricia Krenwinkel, 6 consecutive life sentences. She is the longest serving female inmate in the United States of America today. Right?
I'm surprised they didn't give her the death penalty.
They did have that at first in California,
but they
it was repealed.
rescinded the Lou, you're right. They rescinded the death penalty because California declared the death penalty unconstitutional. And Richard Nixon signed off on it.
Was he governor at the time? Was Nixon governor at the time when that happened? Or
no, he was president of the United States.
He's president. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yep,
I'm sorry. Reagan.
The
Reagan
governor was Ronald Reagan.
Reagan. That's what I got confused.
Yep.
There was a scene in the movie where Charles Manson tried to get a mistrial because if he flashed a headline to the jury with a newspaper saying Nixon says Manson's guilty.
Yeah.
So they had to put the trial on hold.
Well, Richard Nixon was president of the United States. He could say whatever the fuck he wanted.
Well, right. It's just the jury couldn't see it because it could have skewed them, and he was trying to get a mistrial, is what he was trying to do.
And
he was no dummy. Manson was a smart guy.
His IQ was what, 109?
I think, Lou, he might have been too smart for his own good.
Yeah.
He tried to represent himself too at first.
Yeah, he sure did. That's never a good move.
No.
Bruce M. Davis has been convicted and still serving life sentence. They gave him 2 consecutive life sentences for direct involvement in both the Lino LaBianca and Sharon Tate murders. And finally, Charles Tex Watson, Charlie's right-hand man, his muscle guy, carried out all of Charlie's biddings and took charge of all the women. He received 10 concurrent, not consecutive, 10 concurrent life sentences. In other words, they say, well, you can serve 1 life sentence because you're going to be dead after it.
Right.
The idea behind these consecutive and concurrent life sentences, and I had to look it up. It's for legal precedent reasons. Here's the deal. You can never, under any circumstance or any situation, regardless, not even a presidential pardon can get you out when you have been given more than 2 life sentences. So you're in jail. You're going to die there.
Yep.
And you're not going anywhere. Yep. You are not going anywhere. This would be a great time for Charlie to prove that he's Jesus by coming back.
Right?
Well,
Exactly.
he had 5 years, so
Yeah.
But-
I don't know about that, Lou. He ain't been back. That thing.
No, I don't think he was Jesus.
Jesus did that in 3 days, brother.
Me being a man noticed something that Sharon Tate was an absolutely gorgeous woman.
Absolutely,
It's such a shame.
beautiful.
She was
beautiful. Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
She was young. She was a baby.
21,
22.
22, yeah.
And that was
I
their
think
first
she was
child.
22, maybe 23 tops.
Yeah.
But she was like 21, 22.
She had a
years
proper acting career and everything.
God.
And it was,
And you got to remember, Roman at the time was like 35, 36.
yeah.
He was substantially older than her, a few years, at least 13 or 14 that I know of.
Absolutely.
But when that rape occurred, and we have to call it what it was because it's not alleged, we know he did it because he was convicted of it as well. That girl, she's, by her way, her name is still unknown out there. To me, it is.
She was a minor and a rape victim. Yeah.
Yeah. I think she's only spoken about it one time, and that was in Silhouette. And they disguised her voice. And then she gave one interview, and they never released her name. But Roman Polanski had a thing for really young, like too young girls. I saw a movie recently, Lou. You're a movie file like I am. I saw a movie with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
Tarantino.
movie plays heavily on the Manson theme. Heavily. The Manson theme is all through that film.
Yeah.
All through it, including Sharon Tate walking into a movie theater to watch herself on the screen and nobody knowing it was her.
Of course. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know it was her unless she said
no. Well, she was don't forget, she wasn't a major actress she was on the verge of becoming a star when she died.
Yeah.
When she was killed. She was on the verge of becoming a star because Dean Martin, who was a hell of a singer and actor, had such a great scene with her. He gave her the push for her next movie. He said you got to hire her. He told Paramount Pictures, I want her in this movie. Because it was going to be another Matt Helm film. And she was going to be the female lead based on Dean Martin's word. And she never got to live that out. She was going to be a star. And Dean Martin was going to make her a star.
I believe it.
Yeah.
She definitely had
to. I'll tell you what, man.
She
This
had to look
has
for
been
it.
a hell of a show tonight.
What did the Beatles say about him using the song Helter Skelter?
Say again, please.
What did the Beatles say about him using the song Helter Skelter?
Okay, well, here's the deal on that. Paul McCartney said that basically what Paul said is that Manson, completely and utterly misrepresented what the song was about.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul and John are talking about the rise and fall of the Roman Empire.
Right.
Kind of like the rise and fall of Babylon in scripture.
Right. Did he tell him to stop using the song, though? I mean, did he tell him to, completely?
No.
The
Beatles didn't. Here's the funny part. It's a great question, though. The Beatles didn't even know that their music was being used to kill people based on Manson's mentality until they saw the headlines that had Helter Skelter written in blood.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They didn't. Paul and John, Ringo and George had no clue, not an idea.
They were in England. They were across the pond.
Yeah.
They were in.
You got to remember.
They didn't have internet back then or shit like that. Yeah.
Right. Lou's right. So remember,
yeah, they didn't have anything like that back then. And
all you had was television and radio.
And
you had some, the feigning years of what they called the newsreels, they were fading their way out because, transatlantic radio and TV were very popular now and becoming more in the norm. And you're also talking about the latter 60s to early 70s, and the Beatles were kind of waning their way out anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to remember that by 1971, the Beatles were already broke up.
Right.
They were done.
That's true.
By
That's true.
1969, for all intents and purposes, Lou, right?
Yeah.
By 1969, the
They were
Beatles
fighting.
were all doing their own thing. They were done.
They were
were
done.
only together contractually, Amelia, because they had a number of unfinished recording projects.
Unfinished business stuff, just to hurry up and finish.
They had to do the Let It Be album, and they had to go in studio to do production on Abbey Road.
Yeah, and I think not John, it was Paul was going to release a solo album, and they put a cease and desist on that to wait 6 months until after the Beatles' last album.
Until after the Beatles records were,
they gave
and
him-
that
they
was
issued
the
him a cease and
contract
desist.
that Alan Klein wrote up.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
Paul,
remember that.
to this day, you can't mention Alan Klein's name to Paul McCartney without him giving you the look.
Yeah, he gets pissed.
The
He doesn't
look
like him.
that only Paul can give you. That if looks could kill you, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
Neil, what do we got coming up? What's going on next?
May 13th, Monday, we're going to be talking about human trafficking.
We are indeed talking about human trafficking next week.
Yes.
Yep, I'll see what I can do about making it because I'm not even sure what my schedule is. But I'll be in touch with you, Amelia. I will.
Okay.
Excellent.
Something about there was another murder that was a famous murder, and it was a that was believed to be a copycat of the Manson murders. It was the Jeffrey McDonald case in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Fort Bragg. You know what I'm talking about? The Fatal Vision. Yeah.
Dr. Jeffrey McDonald,
captain in the Green Beret in the Army.
Yep. Absolutely, captain. He was an actual doctor. He was a military doctor.
Yeah, I lived in that area for a while.
Very highly decorated. Oh my God, medals out the yin yang.
He's still in prison for that, as far as I
know.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
He has forever and a day proclaimed his innocence. I believe.
That's another one we could talk about. Yeah, the McDonald murders. Yeah,
Amelia, let's do that. Write that down. The Jeffrey McDonald case.
See, look what I'm here. I'm so useful for you.
You really are.
Well, no, because there's times I remember when I first heard of this, there was a mini series on NBC called Fatal Vision.
Yeah,
you watch it, and you're like, oh, this guy's guilty. Now, this guy's guilty as hell. Yeah, he did it.
Oh, yeah.
Then you see other things and other specials about it, and you're like,
can I tell you something, Lou?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think a woman did it.
Yeah, supposedly a woman with a floppy hat. Yeah,
I think a woman did it.
Yeah. Well,
I do.
They use that example in forensics classes as to what not to do because they screwed it up so bad.
Oh my God! Please. Oh.
Yeah, for that because it was in the military housing. It was his wife and two daughters.
The
and him.
only one worse than that, Lou, was the JonBenet Ramsey case.
Oh yes.
And we got some info on the JonBenet case that'll curl your socks.
Oh.
Because there's a number of people who think that she wasn't killed, she was sold.
I could bring this. I'll be good. I'm always prepared.
Right? Just throw it in.
Amelia, you better talk to your boy here. What else we got, Amelia, next week?
Escaping from Alcatraz Part 2 on May 14th.
Bring your toilet paper.
Don't let him throw you. Go ahead. Get one more out. We got one more show.
The Nickelodeon Scandal, we'll be talking about on May 15th on Wednesday.
Absolutely. There you go. You got through it, kid. I'm proud of you. Jeez.
Sorry.
What's up,
yourself, Okay,
Lou
guys.
Marconi,
People
what
pay
do you got
attention.
coming up?
I got coming up. I have the Sunday Stew Pot every Sunday on Rumble with Corey Castle. We talk wrestling. We make jokes. This is nothing. Me, the way I am now, I'm tempered for Mad Dog because it's his show. I cover the Cleveland Browns for the Fanatical Elves Network. I do the Burning River Browns Talk podcast. And I also am a columnist for Fans First Sports Network covering the Browns and Cleveland Cavaliers.
Let me invite you and Castle to come on the show sometime. We'll do boys'
absolutely
night out.
because absolutely, and I've introduced Amelia to Corey. Amelia, that's how Amelia found out. She saw the reels from the The stew pot shows. Yeah, the Sunday
Yeah,
stew pot.
they're hilarious. I mean, you have to watch them. They keep me laughing.
Well, was it one time I was on a show called The Squad Pod, and it was all ladies. And I made a joke that got crickets because I was like, no, because I just went, God, you guys are like the opposite of The View. You're a group of women working together, and you actually get along. And that's silent.
And they were like, what? And I busted laughing.
It went over their head. They didn't get it.
No. Well, like there was another one. I had two women on my podcast, and it was a Steelers joke because Browns fans and Steelers fans hate each other. We're rivals. And I said, how do you know you're at a Steelers tailgate? And they go, no, how? I said, all the hot dogs taste like shit. You guys got it. They just looked at me and they had to think. They're like,
that's funny.
That was my joke. I was like, and I was like, oh my God. So I had to do my Trump voice. I had to do my Trump and tell them what I was. So that's what I was doing.
You know who John Fetterman is?
Yeah, he's a senator in Pennsylvania that had the stroke. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Biden Fetterman, it's a no-brainer.
I tell you, because I could do my offensive stuff if I'm doing my Trump voice, so that's what I.
You're fired.
You're fired. No, I just say the whole joke is that they're gay and they put hot dogs in their buttholes. They're so gay they come with a side of fag. That's what they do.
Be sure to check Lou on Burning River Browns Talk.
She's crying. I'm making her cry.
Jeez. So, and all the other podcasts he's got going on. Amelia will be here Monday with me if I let her.
She lets me see.
God. It's a struggle every week with her, Lou. It really is.
She's amazing.
She's
amazing.
Thank you.
Yes.
So is Lou, and they're funny. You have to watch
them. They got room on Lou's podcast.
I think anytime.
Anytime. Oh yeah, it was so funny. When I worked as a traveling sales rep. Show. Well, you know, I'm pretty good with my Spanish, right? You know that, Amelia.
Right.
Well, it's so funny because whenever I traveled when I was traveling as a sales rep, there's a lot of Spanish speaking agents that I work with, and they were mostly women in offices. And there's good looking and there's insurance good looking. So I was like really good looking in insurance, and they called me Papi Gringo.
Papi Gringo.
And they were like, but then they didn't know I knew Spanish, so they were saying stuff like "Señor Bonito," "Papi Chulo," and I'm like, "Papi Chulo." Oh yeah. I'm like, I know what that means. I was like, muchas gracias.
Called me Slappy Pappy.
Slappy Pappy. But yeah, I mean, I'm not kidding. And I looked, and I say, muchas gracias. Teres my BT.
We want to do that. We should go on your show sometime.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I don't give a shit. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We record during the week. We record it during the week, and it drops on a Sunday.
Record together. We can show our show at the same time.
Yeah. We'll do it both, and just
for Lou Marconi, I am the Mad Dog, and for Amelia, God help us again. For Amelia Pitbull Chapman. This is What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast. We will see you, God willing, and the creek don't rise next week, folks. Take care. Be good to each other. We are out of here.
And happy.